The Jordan Show on YouTube.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling a company that honestly just blew my mind when I started researching them. It's FMC. You know, FMC.
FMC Corporation, yeah.
Right, FMC Corporation. So at first glance, maybe not the most exciting name, but trust me, their story, it's wild. We're talking everything from like revolutionizing agriculture to, get this, building the vehicles that stormed Normandy.
Oh, yeah. The amphibious landing vehicles, right. Critical in World War II.
Exactly. But that's barely scratching the surface. We're also going to get into how FMC, this company with roots in farming, somehow ended up shaping the landscape of Silicon Valley as we know it today. Buckle up. It's a wild ride.
I think what's so cool about FMC is how they embody this idea of like cross-industry innovation, taking what they learned in one field and applying it to something completely different. I mean, who would think that building a better sprayer for orchards would lead to breakthroughs in robotics and aerospace?
Seriously. It almost makes you wonder if there's some kind of secret formula. Like, what allowed them to jump from, keeping bugs off oranges to designing machines that can, like, work on the International Space Station?
Well, let's start at the beginning, shall we? 1883, a California farmer named John Bean was struggling with a pretty common problem. Pests were attacking his orchard.
Classic farmer problem, right?
Totally. So Bean decides, hey, I'm going to invent a better way to spray these trees. And that's how he came up with the first high-pressure pump, specifically for pest control. Pretty ingenious for the time.
So this is like the OG sprayer.
Yeah.
Like the granddaddy of all the crop-saving tech we have today.
You could say that. And this invention, it's the foundation of what eventually becomes the Food Machinery Corporation, FMC. See, at first it was all about, food, machinery for growing, processing, packaging, but then things get really interesting around World War II.
World War II, the great disruptor. I mean, it had to have had some impact on a company making farm equipment, right?
Right, a huge impact. Suddenly, the government needs all hands on deck, and FMC's expertise in, durable machinery, that was suddenly in high demand.
So they went from fighting bugs to, fighting in a war.
Exactly. They started building those amphibious landing vehicles we mentioned earlier, the ones used in the D-Day landings and on Pacific Islands, all these critical operations. Talk about a high-stakes engineering challenge.
Wow. From keeping crops safe to landing troops on enemy beaches, that's a heck of a pivot. But, okay, I have to ask, did those early days of building tough farm equipment actually influence those landing vehicles?
It's hard to say for sure, but I bet it did. FMC had already built a reputation for creating machines that could withstand harsh conditions, that were reliable, that could get the job done.
Right.
That kind of engineering mindset had to carry over.
Makes sense. So World War II ends, and I'm guessing FMC doesn't just go back to making tractors.
Not exactly. That wartime experience opened up a whole new world for them. They were already making hydraulic systems, using fluid pressure to power machines, and they got really good at it during the war.
Hydraulics. Okay, I'm picturing construction equipment.
Yeah, think excavators, bulldozers, even things like airplane landing gear. But FMC saw the potential for this technology in a totally different field. Robotics.
Whoa, robotics. So this is where the futuristic stuff starts happening.
This is where it gets really cool. In the 1970s, they bring in this brilliant engineer, Dr. Charlie Draper, to lead their robotics division.
Dr. Draper. Okay, this guy must have been something else.
He was a pioneer. His team at FMC developed one of the first electrically powered, computer-controlled robotic arms. The Stanford arm, they called it. Revolutionary stuff.
A robotic arm. What could they even do with that back then?
Well, think about it. This is before widespread automation, right? Suddenly you have this machine that can perform precise, repetitive tasks. Things that were either dangerous or just tedious for humans to do.
Okay, I get it. Like factory work, maybe?
Exactly. Manufacturing, welding, even handling hazardous materials. But what's even more impressive is that Dr. Draper's team didn't just build the arm, they also created the software to control it. This early programming language, it was essentially an operating system for robots.
So he not only built the robot, he taught it how to talk.
Pretty much. And that had a huge impact on how robots could be used and programmed. It made them more adaptable, more user-friendly. It paved the way for the kind of automation we see all around us today.
Wow. So FMC is making waves in agriculture, defense tech, and now robotics. But their story doesn't stop there, does it?
No. Remember how we talked about FMC's work with hydraulics?
Yeah, for construction and stuff.
Well, that expertise led them to another major innovation: lightweight materials. They started developing these incredibly strong but super light composites, originally for things like armor and aerospace applications.
Okay, so like lighter, stronger planes.
Exactly. But the applications went way beyond that. Think about cars, sporting goods, all kinds of things where weight and strength are important. And leading this research, another brilliant mind, Dr. Marguerite Williams.
Dr. Williams, another FMC innovator.
She was a pioneer in materials science. Her work at FMC helped revolutionize how we think about materials, how to make them lighter, stronger, more efficient. It's a legacy that continues to this day.
It's amazing, right? This company starts with a farmer trying to protect his orchard, and they end up shaping entire industries. But we still haven't talked about how they influenced Silicon Valley. Fill me in.
So here's where it all comes together. FMC, with its culture of jumping between fields, of constantly innovating and pushing boundaries, it was like the perfect breeding ground for the kind of tech companies that were starting to pop up in Silicon Valley.
So they weren't just building machines, they were building a culture of innovation.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Several of FMC's divisions, including their robotics division, were actually spun off and became independent companies. Many of those went on to become major players in Silicon Valley.
Wow, so it's like FMC planted the seeds for this whole tech boom.
I think that's a great way to put it. Their legacy in Silicon Valley isn't just about specific technologies. It's about that interdisciplinary approach, that understanding that innovation often comes from bringing together people from different backgrounds, different fields.
It's like sometimes the best ideas come from the most unexpected places. And you wouldn't necessarily think that a company that started by making farm equipment would have this much impact on the world of technology.
Right. And it makes you wonder, what seemingly unrelated fields today are ripe for that kind of cross-pollination? What connections are we overlooking that could lead to the next big breakthrough?
That's something to think about, huh? Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of FMC. Until next time, keep exploring, keep innovating. And remember, sometimes the most unlikely connections lead to the greatest discoveries.